Bueno, Piñu. Bueno, Piñu.
You know what's crazy about Spy Kids? Robert Rodriguez. Though El Mariachi back in 1992 is what put him on the Hollywood radar, it was his 1996 From Dusk Till Dawn that solidified him as a director. If you've never seen From Dusk Till Dawn, let me just summarize it as peak Quentin Tarantino foot fetish weirdness and over-the-top absurdities involving vampires. But then in the middle of all these weird horror movies, he went out and released 3 Spy Kids movies from 2001 to 2003. Then he went off and made Sin City before diving back into the weird kid movies by releasing The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl in 2005. After that, it's things like Planet Terror and Grindhouse, then the movie Shorts? Then after Machete and Machete Kills, we got Spy Kids 4 and that weird Netflix We Can Be Heroes movie. Like, Robert Rodriguez is so weird and fascinating because he also directed some Star Wars TV, a bad Ben Affleck movie, and finally, and most recently at the time of making this video, the 5th installment in his Spy Kids franchise. Now that I've kind of painted a picture of the 2 different types of movies this guy makes, we can take a closer look at his longest running franchise. So with all of that, let's get into it. The movie opens with the Cortez family, led by the father Gregorio and mother Ingrid, as she tells a story to her 2 kids, Junie and Carmen. The story she tells them is actually how Ingrid and Gregorio were rival spies, but eventually fell in love, retired, and had a family. It's also hilarious that she says spies are masters of disguise, but when we see Gregorio in the flashback, he literally just has a tiny mustache and that's it. Great disguise. Both parents didn't completely give up their spy life, as they now both work as consultants for the OSS, aka the Organization of Super Spies. Be honest and comment down below if you knew that's what OSS stood for when you watched these movies, because I did not. In their house, Junie and Carmen have to complete an obstacle course before school, which also shows us that these 2 siblings don't get along all the time. Another major plot point of this movie is the kids show Junie is obsessed with, that he always watches and is even watching in the car on the way to school. The show is run by a guy named Floop and his minion named Minion. Not those minions, different Minion. Junie also has this weird ability to mimic people's voices perfectly, and he does that to annoy his sister on the way to school.
This supposed to be a self-portrait? What's this supposed to be a self-portrait? Mommy's mimicking me! Mommy's mimicking me!
We then cut to Mr. Floop's castle, where it turns out he's working with some shady individuals to develop super soldiers. He shows a guy named Mr. Lisp, a kid that looks like his son, who then proceeds to beat him up a little bit. But because the robots don't have brains, they're kinda dumb, so he tells Floop that he has 2 days to come up with something better or he's toast. Meanwhile, Gregorio tells Ingrid he's going on a mission to find 7 missing OSS agents and find out what happened to them. Through her very unique tactics of just basically seducing her husband, Ingrid convinces Gregorio to let her tag along. Uncle Felix is called to watch Carmen and Junie while their parents head off to be spies once again, which means another tiny mustache. The spy duo heads to Floop's castle in their submarine car, only to be discovered by Floop and captured immediately. Their capture sets off a red alert at the Cortez house, so Junie and Carmen can be brought up to speed by their Uncle Felix about what their parents are really up to. He's not really their uncle, as he too is wearing a fake mustache, and Carmen doesn't believe her parents are spies because
My parents can't be spies, they're not cool enough!
Felix gets the kids to the escape pod, but because he went back for some valuables, the Ninja Thumbs show up and beat him up. A boat chase starts, and I love that when they pop out of the escape pod, they just magically have life jackets on. The chase ends when they transform into a sub, and the Ninja Thumbs and their boats crash into some rocks. And now that they're back inside, their life jackets are mysteriously gone again. I don't even see where they got them from or where they put them in the first place. Someone needed to have better control of the life jacket continuity in this movie. The sub goes by some sharks, Junie gets depressed about his parents, and the sub announces the flushing of his poo. Our sibling spies arrive at the safe house, and we are treated to some McDonald's product placement. Back with the captured Cortez parents, Ingrid uses her laser ring to set them free, and on their way out, the floor disappears. Trying to make the jump across, Gregorio lands on his face, and it turns out it was all just a trick. Stumbling around the Floop castle some more, they end up in a hollow room, which ultimately lands them right in front of the Floop man himself.
I snap my fingers, and my fingers snap you.
12 years ago, the 7 OSS agents were part of a research team that was working on an artificial brain. Turns out Floop not only recaptured these guys, but he also turned them into his weird-looking monster creature men that are on his kids' TV show. He says the research was destroyed, but Gregorio was once on this team and knows how to rebuild the brain. And to show that he's serious, Floop then transforms Felix into one of these weird creatures right in front of him. Carmen and Junie find a photo album and realize that the spy stories were really about their parents, and Junie doesn't like it that they lied to them. He's so mad, he tries to knock himself out with a toolbox. A knock at the door shows a bunch of agents, and when they let them inside, they tell them that all the Floop characters on the show are actually the captured OSS agents. Carmen relays a message Felix gave her, and this random lady gives her a bracelet for being so brave. Junie spots the Thumb Ninjas sabotaging their sub, and realizing that they're found out, the agents steal the brain. Carmen straps on a jetpack to get the brain back, pick up Junie, and also make her escape. They just visually fly into a store without anyone noticing or caring, so we can have a quick slow motion spy walk with a music cue and everything. Minion suggests sending robot kids that look like Carmen and Junie in order to retrieve the brain from Carmen and Junie. This leads to a fun standoff between the human kids and the robot kids, which includes Junie getting spun around at Mach 1 on what are these things called? And Carmen unsuccessfully tries to headbutt a robot, and yet she's the one that keeps calling Junie stupid. The robot kids get the brain, and as they blast off, some random kid yells that he wants shoes like that. Yeah, every kid wants rocket shoes, you dummy. Junie and Carmen go to visit the one and only Machete, and I love Danny Trejo so much in all the movies he's in because I grew up with him in these movies. Unfortunately for them, Machete isn't too fond of his younger brother Gregorio, and instead tells them to leave. Back with Floop, he tells Minion that he's not really into this evil stuff anymore, and Minion is revealed as the real mastermind behind everything. It also turns out that Gregorio is upset with Machete because he sold his tech to both the good spies and the bad spies. He still lets the kids stay with him that night, so they decide to steal a bunch of his inventions and drop this hardcore line when they get the map right out of his hands.
Never sent an adult to do a kid's job.
We've got a badass over here.
Minion starts to mass produce the third brain, so Carmen and Junie then steal this tiny airplane from Machete and fly off to stop his master plan. They're kind of bad pilots, being kids and all, so they don't make it very far before they lose both their wings and their landing gear. They bail out using scuba gear and decide to enter the castle from the water instead. Junie pees in the water, which wakes up all the guard sharks, but they're able to get inside just before their shark food. Sneaking around the castle, they learn where their parents are and fight through the Thumb Ninjas using the gadgets they stole from Machete. The duo run into the same fake floor as before, but this time when Carmen tries to make the jump, she actually falls. Junie ends up in the same hollow room as before, where a giant Floop face greets him. They start to have this heart-to-heart, and Junie pulls out this doll to help make his point, but he just had this in his back pocket this entire time. Floop and Junie have what looks like a counseling session, and using the electric gum that he has from Machete, Junie is able to free them both from the hollow room. While running down the hall, they bump into Carmen, so the three work together in order to free their parents. Mr. Lisp comes back to collect his army, so Junie uses his mimicking voice to trick Minion to come into the changing room. Gregorio pops up behind him, followed by Ingrid and Carmen in such comical ways. The Cortez family participates in group mutilation as they transform Minion into one of the creatures. Briefly, Gregorio gets transformed into a Floop creature and then transformed back, but it happens so quickly that I'm mentioning it here instead of when it happened. So now you know. Doppelganger, Junie and Carmen capture Gregorio and Ingrid once again, while Floop tries to reprogram the brains so the kids will be good instead of evil. We get this line as an almost cursing fake out when the kids fight their lookalikes.
Oh shit. Taki mushrooms.
Junie and Carmen eventually get the upper hand on the robots by cementing them to a wall, just in time to see their parents beat a bunch of thugs up. Machete crashes through the window to back the Cortez family up, while they stare down the army of murdering robot kids. Just in time, Floop is able to reprogram the brains and the kids end up being good, so the day is saved. In some final shots, we see on the news that all the robot kids are now out in the world saving people as good guys. Machete is now a part of the family once again, and on the TV, Floop's show now features the Carmen and Junie look-alikes. So if this is a really well-known kids show, how on earth are Junie and Carmen going to be able to explain this to people they meet? In a final shot, George Clooney shows up as Devlin to request Carmen and Junie to go on a mission for the OSS. This first Spy Kids movie is so much fun. I had forgotten how genuinely enjoyable this one is. Going into this rewatch, it had probably been close to 10 years since I last saw any of these, and I wasn't sure what I would think. When centering a movie around kids, it's a hit or miss situation on if those kids will be able to pull off their performance. Alexa Vega and Daryl Sabara are probably some of the best kid actors I've ever seen. At ages 12 and 10, I fully believe them as not just kids in this world, but as siblings too. As someone who grew up with an older sister with the same age gap as these two, I can say with full confidence their relationship is accurate. They both do a great job at selling siblings who bicker, but also love each other. They're just at that age where you don't really express it that much. It also helps that the world crafted around them is bizarre and strange, so the weird stuff they do doesn't feel out of place. I'm also a big fan of gadgets in movies, especially spy movies, and I've decided to keep a list of all the ones I see for a nice little recap at the end. Plus, Alan Cumming and Tony Shalhoub are a great pairing as the goofy friends to enemies back to being goofy friends for this plot. I mean, you get Monk and Nightcrawler in the same room, and it's bound to be a good time. Not to mention Antonio Banderas is just an all-time great. I mean, he's motherfucking Zorro. I love Zorro. He's so cool and handsome and cool and handsome. It's actually mind-blowing how many big names show up across all 5 of these movies. Either people truly love working with Robert Rodriguez, or he has a lot of dirt on people. For a movie that's over the top and silly, I appreciate the message of family and being who you are that it kind of tells. It almost feels wrong, given everything that takes place to get the message across, but by the end, I think it works for the most part. The progression of the kids going from at school where Junie is bullied and a loser, while in contrast, Carmen has friends and apparently snuck off to Belize? She drops a line when she's rescuing her mom that she ditched school to go to Belize, so that's wild because she's a child. But as the movie goes on, Junie becomes more comfortable with who he is and starts to gain confidence, while Carmen, who thinks it's cool to not be a part of a family, realizes it's actually pretty cool to be a part of a family. I think it works really well, and we get to see Carmen and Junie continue to grow in the second and third one as well. Maybe it's just me, but how dangerous the situations they find themselves in and how most normal people would die was crazy to me on this rewatch. Imagine being 10 and finding out that the Teletubbies are actually mutated people to be mindless creatures on a kids show. Wait, that's a bad example, because that show is already terrifying on its own. But you get my point. It's nice to see a kids movie that acts as an actual kids movie because the kids are very much the hero and main characters in this story. That probably explains why this movie also loves to have adults get the shit beat out of them by kids, which is kinda hilarious. So far, we're off to a banger start, and I know for a fact that the next one is no different. The president's daughter, Alexandra, is at this world-famous amusement park getting a tour from the one and only motherfucking Bill Paxton. He shows her the juggler, which literally throws bubbles into the air, which looks so dangerous, holy shit. She's a troublemaker herself as she sneaks the key for the override because she's sad the president, aka her dad, isn't there. Since the Secret Service is bad at their job, they call in the Spy Kids themselves, Carmen and Junie, who conveniently are already at this park. They also call in Gary and Gertie Giggles for backup, and Gertie would go on to be BFFs with Hannah Montana. Alexandra also stole a thing called the Transmooker device, and Junie tells her that he's level 2 and can order the president to talk to her.
I'm level 2. I can order him to talk to you.
Oh my god, this movie is so funny and stupid already. Junie saves her, and Gary brings the Transmooker device, which is then immediately taken away by a helicopter. I also like how this huge amusement park just has a bunch of inflatables in the corner. I guess those are for the people who don't want to be juggled in the air. Later on, all the Cortez family go to an OSS event where Gregorio might be named the new director. A waiter who has a magnet on his head offers children champagne? Who vetted these guys? Oh yeah, Gary has this weird giggle laugh, kind of like how his last name is Giggles. Ha, ha. Gary wants to dance with Carmen, so Gregorio interrogates him a little bit, while Junie goes off to do ballet with Alexandra. The president shows up, and as he's reading out the name for the new director of the OSS, it changes from Gregorio to Donegan Giggles. Now being official Nepo babies, Gary and Gertie get level 1 passes and this super special assignment. As the adults toast and drink the champagne, they all pass out. Oh, so that's why the guy offered it to children. He wasn't trying to offer them alcohol, he was offering them drugs.
You need to leave!
A kid vs. magnet head fight takes place, and this little kid kicks a dude while he's down. Also, Gertie uses her pigtails to levitate and knock a magnet guy out. In the end, all the magnet guys escape with the transmuker device when a magnet ship shows up, and they all fly into the air and stick to the bottom. Junie gets blamed for them taking the transmuker device, so the next day at OSS Junior, he gets fired and his dad is the one who has to do it. Meanwhile, the magnet boys take the transmuker device to an island where dreams get lost. So Carmen and Junie head to their treehouse where we get to hear their full names once again.
Carmen Elizabeth Juanita Ecosca Bravo Cortez. Junie Rathy Razor Rebel Cortez.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Junie Rathy Razor Rebel Cortez.
One more time.
Junie Rathy Razor Rebel Cortez.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Once inside the treehouse, the two use Junie's robot pet Ralph to spy on Gary and Gertie as they get briefed on their new assignment. During the briefing, we learn that the island is in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, and that's where the transmuker device is. Carmen uses her hacking skills to reinstate Junie and give them the good assignment, while giving the Giggles a new mission that involves them falling face first into some camel feces and spitting it out. Machete arrives and gives them a bunch of gadgets for their new mission.
Cell phone, internet access, satellite TV, you name it. That baby will do everything but tell you what time it is.
It doesn't tell time?
The duo get in their sub and head to the island, and we get another McDonald's product placement, and Carmen says that she can change who Gary is. Realizing that the island is connected to the OSS, they call the one and only Floop and Minion for some help. Minion tells them that this definitely smells of Donegan Giggles, and also they need to find someone called the Island Man. Junie steps away to try to call Alexandra, but he only gets her voicemail, and we cut away before we learn what he said. The sub ends up crashing into the island, so our siblings use inflatable suits to rise to the surface. A giant two-headed sea serpent show up behind them as they bicker and argue, and they puncture the suits, which sends them skipping their way to shore. Back with the Cortez parents, we learn that Ingrid's parents never gave them their full blessing, and she wants Gregorio to try to make things right. Back with Carmen and Junie, none of their gadgets now work, and Junie is disappointed they have to use their heads. Donegan interrupts to tell them that their kids are actually on the assignment to the island, and they lost contact with their sub and are now missing. Not wasting any time, and Gregorio putting his tiny mustache back on, they head out in order to save their kids and are immediately greeted by Ingrid's parents. They decide to promptly ditch the grandma and grandpa and set out to save their spy kids. We then comically cut to Donegan as he has the biggest and most impractical office I've ever seen. You have to jump on moving platforms every time you want to go to or from your desk. He calls some guys on the island and tells them that he's on his way so he can then jump back across the moving platforms to get out of his office. Our spy duo looks around the island and almost gets squashed by a magnet guy riding a magnet speeder. Lots of magnet-related tech in this one. Meanwhile, Gary and Gertie are back on track to the island, and Gertie keeps repeatedly telling Gary to speed up. Not the best idea, because when they hit the magnet field that surrounds the island, they immediately come to a screeching halt and smack into the windshield. They repeat the same steps as Carmen and Junie, and also get sent flying towards the shore by the two-headed sea monster. Only it's not from a bite, it's because they smell like actual camel shit, and the sea creature gets grossed out. While exploring the island, Junie and Carmen see some trees moving in the distance, so they decide to book it to the top of the volcano. Junie gets knocked in by a pig with wings, and Carmen grabs him at the last minute, only for her rope to break, sending them both plummeting below. Turns out they're not really falling because hours and hours go by and they're just kind of suspended in free fall, which leads to this great moment.
We've been falling! I don't know, my watch doesn't tell time!
Eventually their free fall stops and they meet Romero, the island man played by the incredible Steve Buscemi. He takes him to his lab and tells him he's a genetic specialist who needed a controlled environment for his experiments. Romero was trying to develop miniature animals so kids could have zoos in their own bedrooms. One day he accidentally mixed up some test tubes and created a new species altogether, which consists of a bunch of hybrid animals. Then he stupidly applied a growth serum and all the monsters attacked him, leaving him locked up in his lab ever since. Then Romero proceeds to drop this incredible line for a kids movie.
You think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
Carmen and Junie find out that Gary and Gertie are getting attacked by these things called slizzards, so they race out of the lab to go save them. Everyone regroups and Carmen and Junie fill Gary and Gertie in about what's going on, but they don't like their dad being accused of being a villain, so they storm off to do things their own way. Back on the mothership, oh, that's clever. Gregorio reveals he put trackers in the kids' teeth so they can find out where they are. The grandparents board their ship to help with the rescue mission, and the grandmother rips the fake mustache off of Gregorio. Back with Carmen, she says the transmuker has to be destroyed, and Romero tells the duo that it's located at the top of the temple on the island. Using magnet speeders, they race off to save the day, and they're followed close behind by the Giggle siblings. Some slizzards attack, forcing Carmen and Junie to bail and letting Gary and Gertie get a head start. We cut back to Alexandra, and we get to see Junie's full message, where he basically just tells her she should talk to her dad, and then she sees their ship start to crash. She takes immediate action by going to get the president in order to go to the island and help Junie and Carmen. The Spy Kids take their tracker teeth out in order to stop their parents from finding them because they think that's what Donegan actually wants, is for all the Cortez family to be together. And because Gregorio is using the teeth to track them, they see their signal disappear before they can reach the island. Grandpa comes in for the win by revealing he put a tracker in the necklace that he gave to Junie. Wow, this family sure does like to put trackers on their kids. A PlayStation 2 looking cutscene of the spider monkey shows up, sending Junie and Carmen down a hole into some water. They discover an ancient green screen looking civilization and now can communicate by thought. Junie takes a medallion that's being held by skeletons, even though he's warned it will doom and curse them. This leads to a sword fight on some rocks with the skeletons as they battle for a moment before the pig with wings scoops Carmen up and flies off. Junie gives the medallion back, which satisfies the Skelly boys, so then he sets off to rescue his sister. Carmen gets dropped into the pig's nest to find Gertie already there just chillin', and ultimately they both escape before the pig comes back and makes them their meal. While looking for his sister, Junie gets a visit from the giant spider monkey, which he quickly befriends by sharing his food with it. Gary shows up on a slizzard and the two engage in a fight that's just not easy to look at these days. I get what they were going for here, but it feels like a side-scrolling video game from the late 1990s. The slizzard drops a pillar on the spider monkey so Gary can insult Junie some more. This is just in time for Carmen to swing in and kick the shit out of Gary, while a bunch of skeletons then cheer her on.
You're so full of shit, talking mushrooms.
Junie and Carmen go to the top of the temple tower and find the transmuker device, but before they can shut it down, all the Giggles arrive. Donegan shows up, and without thinking, Junie pulls a lever that triggers an event that will destroy the whole world, apparently. They use a machete elastic wonder, aka a rubber band, to hold the switches up, and then Carmen throws the device to the pig with wings as it's flying by. Gertie says she can take everyone to the nest as she knows where it's at, so they all head out on foot. Junie and Carmen, on the other hand, realize their gadgets now work, so they activate their jet shoes to get to the nest first and grab the device. Romero finally gets the courage to leave his lab and immediately gets cornered by his creatures and torn violently limb from limb in a gruesome... Oh wait, no, they lick him a bunch like puppies. Oh, that's cute. Back on the beach, the parents and the grandparents show up and are reunited and brought up to speed. Donegan confronts them, and Felix turns out to be a bad guy and betrays the Cortez family. Big Bad Giggle Man goes to wipe them out, but Junie remote pilots the helicopters to distract him, so Gregorio and him can then have a fist fight. They fight like old men as they stumble around and knock each other out at the same time a bunch. Fed up with it all, Donegan tries to use the transmuker device to blow the grandparents up up, so Gregorio heroically jumps in front of them. Doesn't really matter because Gertie sabotaged the device so it wouldn't work, and she ends up ultimately kind of saving the day. Romero and the president show up, and family turns out to be the most important thing at the end of the day. Alexandra tries to promote Junie to level 1, but he decides at the ripe old age of 11, he's done with being a spy. I do think it's impressive that they wrote Junie, a literal child, to have a strong moral compass because he doesn't believe in all the lying, cheating, and stealing that's involved with becoming a spy. Gregorio gets named head of the OSS, and everyone quite literally sails into the sunset. It's kind of crazy to me that the second Spy Kids movie is actually the lowest grossing out of the original trilogy. I think this one has one of the most compelling and engaging stories by creating this island of horrible creatures and wonders. Again, every single performance is exactly what it needs to be in order to fit in this world we already established is far out. My only complaint is that we don't get to see nearly enough of all the hybrid animals. Although, considering how the CGI looks in this movie, that might actually be a good thing. I like how they build up this notion that a spy is only as good as their gadgets, and then as soon as the plot gets going, all the gadgets stop working. This is definitely a trope that's used a lot in action-adventure movies, where the one thing the group has to rely on suddenly fails or doesn't work, meaning they have to use their brains to navigate the situation at hand. Putting kids that usually rely on their gadgets in that exact situation in order for them not to die is a clever way to raise the stakes. I also appreciate how this one expands a little more on the OSS and the world of being spies. It's cool to see an event where everyone, even little baby spies, are dressed up and it's just normal to all of them. Island of Lost Dreams continues the theme of adults being dumb and kids having all the answers, something that as a kid I fully appreciated. As an adult now, it's just funny because neither the parents or the kids have practical or good solutions to any of these problems. It's also cool that Junie and Carmen get the main story together, but they also each get a little bit of a side story as well. Junie has this whole side plot of wanting to help Alexandra connect with her dad, while also struggling with what it means to be a spy. The relationship he builds with Alexandra helps him realize that being a spy isn't really for him. Carmen, on the other hand, has been shown to us as perfect, but throughout the story we see her cracks and flaws, which culminate when she finally stands up for Junie by beating up the cheeseball that is Gary Giggles. We see her choose Gary over and over because she's a teenage girl who likes boys, so why would she side with her little brother she doesn't always get along with? But when push comes to shove, she not only shoves Gary, but she chooses her brother, which is just a nice little touch to the whole family message that this one has going for it. From Junie and Carmen's sword fighting skeletons on a cliffside, the little kid who just walks up and starts kicking one of the bad guys. Hell, even the scene where the sea serpent gets grossed out by the feces smell. This movie is a goddamn masterpiece through and through. Not even the bad effects can bring my mood down enough to insult this movie, because from start to finish, it's silly, fun, engaging, and a downright good time. Immediately, this movie shows you it was filmed for 3D in a not so good way. Junie is now a private investigator, and he's at an abandoned water park to meet someone who hired him for his normal rate of $4.99. He now spends his days helping the common folk with things like locating their lost cat, finding action figures, and wandering the weirdly empty streets of Washington, D.C. The setup for this third outing is that a guy named the Toy Maker has created a video game that takes control of the player's brain when they beat the game. Carmen was sent into the game world by the OSS to stop him, and she requested Junie to be her backup. But since he ignored all the calls, she's now gone missing inside the game. This allows for George Clooney to show up again, now as the president, as he tells Junie the OSS needs him. Both Mr. and Mrs. Giggles are there to tell Junie that Carmen disappeared on level 4, and they only have until midnight to stop the Toy Maker because that's when the game comes out to the public. Oh, and the OSS imprisoned the Toy Maker in his game years ago, even though the game is coming out now. So did he build this game while being imprisoned? Once inside the game, Junie runs into some beta testers who bully him, drop him in the sewer, and cause him to lose a life. Some goo takes him to the surface where the beta testers are just hanging out, so Junie attempts to explain why he's there. Being the cool gamers they are, instead they trick Junie into running into a target which sends him flying to the moon. The Giggles call Junie to tell him that he can bring one person from the outside world into the game to help him. This leads to one of the wildest lines I've ever heard in a kid's movie.
Wait a minute. Go back to Grandpa.
Pros, superior intellect. Cons, physically disabled.
Grandpa arrives in the game and we learn that the toy maker is the one who put him in the wheelchair. He uses a Mega Life to get his legs back and then just dips out, leaving Junie alone on the moon. On the moon is not just a giant robot fighting ring, but a young Glenn Powell in his first ever on-screen credit as Long-Fingered Boy. Ugh, that's a rough name. But hey, now he's chasing tornadoes. So good for him and his long fingers. The Long-Fingered Boy gives Junie the rundown on how the fighting works, while also giving him the iconic power suit from the box art. His opponent is Dimitra, who pretty much wipes the floor with him in the first 2 rounds. By round 3, he starts to figure it out and is able to fight back, not only winning the match, but leaving Dimitra with only 3 lives. Junie's mech suit launches him to Earth, where he runs into the same beta testers as before. Also, throughout this plot, we cut to the toy maker and the other versions of himself as they have goofy conversations about their plan. It's pretty fun and highlights Sylvester Stallone's ability to act in ways I was not expecting. Our newly formed gaming group enter this thing called Mega Race, which is the fastest and most dangerous race in the game world. It's basically Mario Kart Rainbow Road meets Mad Max. It just looks a lot worse and not nearly as fun. During the race, a pie is thrown, Junie's car crashes and flips over, one of the beta testers loses a life, and Grandpa shows up to save Junie. The race continues with a punching glove attack where Junie outsmarts the leader of the beta boys, causing him to crash. Dimitra shows back up for a rematch with Junie, but he's too slippery for her to get. He ultimately wins the race by sliding across the finish line on the piece of his car, impressing both Dimitra and the beta testers. One of the testers believes that Junie is the guy, a mythical player that's told to lead people to the end of the game and the treasure that awaits. So everyone teams up to get to level 5, which also causes the programmers to come after the group. They're after them because Dimitra has a map which counts as a cheat, but lucky for them, Grandpa just scares them off. He does this by showing everyone what they really look like, and the answer is stereotypical looking movie nerds from the early 2000s. The toy maker has been watching Junie, and impressed with his skills, he gifts him a life pack. Then Junie does this, and it's just so awkward.
I got extra life, Dimitra.
Congratulations. You'll need it the most.
I want you to take it.
Smooth moves, Junie. Smooth moves. Before level 3 can start, Arnold, one of the beta boys, decides now is a good time to drop his tragic and sad backstory. Level 3 ends up being a fight to the death between Junie and Arnold, but Dimitra swamps places with Junie at the last moment, resulting in her game over. Nice work wasting that life pack on her, you idiot.
You never even got her email address.
Grandpa threatens the toy maker through a butterfly spy, saying he's causing so much pain. Which, like, imagine your grandpa sending a message to the creators of Halo because you kept dying in the game. The toy maker then releases Carmen from her prison just as the gang arrives to the start of level 4. Carmen then tells Junie that the toy maker is the guy who put their grandpa in a wheelchair 30 years ago, because I guess everyone but Junie knew this. All of it leads to a lava surfing sequence where everyone uses rocks to surf the lava as an electric guitar riff plays in the background. Back at the OSS, they decide to drown everyone in lava because they can't risk the grandpa breaking the toy maker out of his prison. One by one they fall in, and lucky for them, the lava isn't real, so they just swim to a cave to regroup. For no reason at all, the same guy who thought Junie was the guy now believes he's actually a different guy known as the Deceiver. Even though they are sitting in a cave that has a giant door marked L5, which is clearly an entrance to the final level. So honestly, Junie kind of fulfilled his promise of getting everyone to the final level, but now they just decide he's the Deceiver? Carmen breaks the news to everyone that there are no riches at the end of the game, only your mind being taken over by a madman. Before anyone can react, a voice is heard in the distance as the one true, real, the guy makes his grand appearance. Frodo gives a big speech about working together and how they're going to win, and the moment he opens the door to level 5, cake.
That guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
Oops.
His oops is also a callback to this earlier threat.
But if you fail us, or if you're not who you say you are, this life counter will hit 0 faster than you can say, oops.
The fact that they got Elijah Wood to show up for 10 seconds and die immediately, even though he was coming off of the fame of Lord of the Rings and did not need to do this movie at all, is just mwah, chef's kiss. Demetra shows up again and tells Junie she found the switch to turn off the game, causing some speculation from Carmen. Turns out Demetra isn't a real girl. She's actually a program and the real deceiver. Some giant gorilla robots break through the floor, and the grandpa reappears to save everyone before the place comes crashing down. Demetra sacrifices herself so everyone can make it out of the game, and before they exit, the beta boys give their emails to Carmen. I like how when you see them back in the real world, they're nothing like they were in the game, and are jealous of Junie because he's a real-life spy. To no one's surprise, the grandpa also let the toy maker out, resulting in a bunch of things from the game coming into the real world. You can only see them if you're wearing the special glasses from the game, and it's just more giant gorilla robots. Junie and Carmen call everyone in, which includes fun little cameos from everyone we've met so far. Their mom, grandma, Machete comes back, Floop and Minion with their robot kids, Bill Paxton from the second one, Romero and some of his animals, Gary Giggles and his sister Gertie, and also Gregorio, who is working on another brain when he just throws it aside and races off to help his kids. Oh, Antonio Banderas, they could never make me hate you. As everyone goes off to fight their individual robots, the grandpa flies up in his wheelchair to face the toy maker once and for all. It gets real for a moment when the grandpa starts telling the toy maker all the things he can't do because of him being in a wheelchair. He pulls a 180 though and continues by saying he was only searching for the toy maker in the first place because he wanted to forgive him. The toy maker flips the comically large off switch and the day is saved. Everyone, and I mean everyone, every single person puts their hands in to cheer for family before the movie ends. You know, I've never watched these first 3 movies back to back like this before, and they make for a pretty solid trilogy. I really like the story of the Cortez family, and I really love the way Junie and Carmen slowly break away from needing their family. In the first one, they rely on their family throughout, fake Uncle Felix, Machete, their parents, and so on. In the second, it's mainly their parents and grandparents, while they now compete with other kid spies, but ultimately, they pull themselves together at the end and help save the day. And in this third one, up until the final fight, none of their family helps them, except kinda maybe sorta the grandpa.
Because I'm busy chasing little fairies.
It was really nice to see Junie and Carmen not only grow as characters, but also see them grow as siblings on screen. Junie striking out on his own to be a private investigator is kind of funny, but also a little sad. Because though his morals made him leave the OSS, you can tell he's not all the way thrilled about it. Not even doing a job for young Selena Gomez can cheer him up. The only downside is we don't get as much Carmen in this movie, and it's really more of a Junie story, and when you pull back and look at the first 3, they're all kind of Junie stories in a big way. And honestly, out of all the performances we get in this movie, the most surprising is from Sly Stallone. This man is playing 4 different versions of himself, each with their own quirk, and he has multiple scenes where he is basically just talking to himself. I can't picture Stallone doing something this silly and over the top these days, and since his whole persona is a tough guy boxer, I'm shocked he did this at all. Like I said, I can easily forgive the CGI in this one, because to me, this is what the inside of a VR game would have looked like in 2003. It's painfully obvious how bad the 3D effect from the early 2000s has aged, and like always, you can tell where those 3D moments are supposed to be. But also, this whole video game makes no sense. You start in a random street, you can fight with robots on the moon, there's a death race, a lava world, and a fight to the death level? What would happen if you were solo when you got to the level where you 1v1 your teammate? Or if you got to the mech fight and your lobby was empty so no one was there to fight? Does the long-fingered kid just stay logged in, waiting around the mech world to help players, or is he not really a player? None of this game makes sense, and the levels are not coherent at all, but I guess since it really just exists to brainwash kids, it doesn't really matter. The beta testers aren't a bad inclusion, but they do all have a generic video game personality and are only there for dramatic effect. Like when Junie fights the backstory kid. The kid literally drops all of this heavy shit right before one of them is forced to lose. It's just a little too forced, but honestly, the stakes of Junie being in this game just to rescue Carmen really weren't the best choice in my opinion. I wish it would have been Junie and Carmen teaming up for something, a last hurrah of the brother-sister combo that we've come to know and love. I can't believe they got 3 of these out in 3 years, and for the most part, they're pretty good. It makes sense given that most of the filming is really just on a green screen, and it was probably filmed over just a couple weeks. But like I said, I think it works. I also like that there's a moment in the second one where Ingrid says that her dad, the grandpa, loves the moon. Whether it was intentional or not, I like how the first thing the grandpa gets to do when he enters the game world is to walk on the moon. That's a nice touch. And one of my favorite segments is still the mega race. The no rules all-out warfare insanity would be a nightmare to play as a gamer in real life. Yet, I still really want to try it. I'll give Robert Rodriguez credit for using his weird brain to form and mold some pretty interesting scenes in these first 3 films. Another trend we start to see develop here is the bad guys not really being the bad guys. This is something I'll talk more about in the wrap-up section for all 5 of these movies, but it is something that I find interesting. Truthfully, I'm riding pretty high from these first 3, and I don't think anything could bring my mood down. So let's see what the 4th installment has in store. The movie opens with our very pregnant spy character, Marissa, as she is after a bad guy known as TikTok. Not the TikTok that causes brain rot, but his voice sounds like a filter you'd hear while doom scrolling, so it's just as bad.
He's got time bombs.
Be careful what you wish for.
Sorry, I can't hang around.
He has this movie's MacGuffin device, and since no other spies were available, a very pregnant Marissa chases after him. While chasing him, she calls her husband Wilbur and tells him she's about to have the baby. After causing TikTok's car to crash, she then starts to chase after him on foot while going into labor. Then her water breaks as she's fistfighting a bunch of his henchmen. I can't. I need a minute. I'm out. I'm going for a walk or something. I can't do this. Head of the OSS, Danger Diamo, shows up to retrieve the device, and Marissa tells him that she's officially retiring. So in this one, Marissa is the only family member who was a spy, and she's the stepmother to Rebecca and Cecil. Wilbur, the dad and husband, is a reality TV show spy hunter, and the ongoing joke is how he's never caught a spy, but he lives with one, so he's bad at his job, After this atrocious opening with this nonsensical bullshit, we time jump a year later. Wilbur never has enough time to spend with his kids because he's so focused on the future that he isn't enjoying the present. And this is the message Spy Kids 4 wants to ram down your throat over and over again. At the OSS, Danger Diamo is getting briefed about how time is speeding up, and this means a thing known as the Armageddon device is officially here. Also, Rebecca and Cecil have this dog named Argonaut, and I can confidently say this is the worst movie dog on screen ever, period, full stop. He's even more annoying, more useless, and has more bad quips than even that weird Marmaduke movie with Pete Davidson. Marissa tries to connect with Rebecca, who, side note, sucks. Actually, let me just say this now, not a single new character in this movie is likable. They all suck. Marissa gives Rebecca a necklace that just so happens to have this super rare element called the Chronos Sapphire inside the charm. What's even stupider about this is you find out here in a little bit that it's like a world-saving element, so why the fuck would you give that to a child who plays pranks, is irresponsible, and oh yeah, a child? The big baddie known as the Timekeeper goes on the news to tell the world he's going to speed up time until the world is destroyed. Then the OSS goes on the news to say that they're going to find the Timekeeper and stop him no matter what. Hold up. I thought the OSS was a secret organization. Why on earth would they be on the news? That would be like SEAL Team 6 going on Hot Ones to talk about what it was like to take down Bin Laden. It's fucking stupid. It also turns out that the device the Timekeeper is using can only be stopped by the Chrono Sapphire, which Marissa just gave to Rebecca. So when she tries to get it back, Rebecca throws a fit and instead gives her a box that doesn't actually have the necklace in it. So when Marissa delivers the box to Danger Diamo and he opens it, it explodes with baby food because she just loves to pull her pranks. Then Diamo just decides that the Sapphire isn't important anymore because instead, he needs Marissa to be a spy once more to go after TikTok. But we just learned that the Sapphire is the only way to stop this device. So why is it no longer important? Because we will soon see that it is in fact important. Meanwhile, Cecil and Rebecca get a visit from the bad guys at their house, and after a series of events, they end up in the panic room. It's all downhill from here because from this moment on, Argonaut the dog starts talking and it becomes nonstop references, bad jokes, one-liners, quips, and I just want it to stop. This is too much, Robert. Robert, you're doing too much here, man. You're doing too much. The siblings get into a plane that's supposed to take them to the OSS where they can deliver the Sapphire, but they get chased by some more goons. And during this chase scene, Cecil weaponizes his puke by throwing bags of it at the guys chasing them. I don't think I can do this. Spy Kids is quickly losing all of the charm and fun that I fell in love with watching the other 3 movies. At least when they do arrive at the OSS, they are greeted by a now adult Carmen Cortez. We are then treated to some nods and winks to the first 3 movies with a room that's just full of Easter eggs. Carmen lets the kids pick out one gadget before she leaves the plot for a little bit. Marissa, on the other hand, brings her baby with her to take TikTok on in a warehouse. Bro, this lady is a terrible parent. I mean, she even chased after a guy while giving birth. She was a bad parent before the baby was even here. Things only get worse because during the fight with the henchmen, we get more fart jokes, and then she throws poopy diapers at them.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
And when we cut back to Cecil and Rebecca, they're escaping the room that they're in at the OSS. During their getaway, the stupid dog poops out some butt bombs and pees oil slick. It all ends when he does a pull my finger, silent but deadly fart joke. Cecil is able to decipher the Timekeeper's code, which leads the siblings to a watch repair shop. In the watch shop, they find a secret elevator, which they just take, no questions asked, down to a giant clock death machine. Rebecca and Cecil find a computer where they learn about a boy who was experimented on in 1936 and ended up getting frozen in time. Rebecca figures out that they're after the necklace, so the two book it out, but not fast enough as TikTok shows up to capture them. They're brought before the Timekeeper, but Marissa and Carmen show up just in time to save the day. The whole family teams up to fight the bad guys in this very hard to look at sequence. Especially the moment where Rebecca uses an electric whip to spin Carmen around while she punches everyone. And during all the fighting, Wilbur shows up with his TV crew to record, but he's too far away to see who anyone is. In the end, the Timekeeper snags the necklace from Rebecca and gets away. Later on, Wilbur watches the footage back, and when he sees his whole family fighting and beating these guys up, he decides to destroy the tape, which ends up getting him fired. Marissa shows up and he says that he needs some time, and as he drives away, we get this weird time lapse over Marissa's head. Like, what the fuck is this? What is the point of this? Back at the OSS, Junie makes his grand appearance as he's come out of retirement to help bring the Timekeeper down. Danger Diamo comes to check on the kids, and Rebecca spots his suspicious watch, while Cecil says his name is an anagram for Armageddon. Okay, then Danger destroys this keypad, saying they're stuck in the room, and then he just walks out the door. So are they really stuck, or could they just walk out too? Because it looks like he just broke the lock and now it doesn't work. So the doors are just like open. He then freezes every agent at the OSS using their ID badges, but Junie isn't affected because he's not an official agent. Junie sends a message to Cecil and Rebecca and tells them that kids are better than adults because kids have imaginations. Junie frees Carmen and Marissa, and when they set out to go after the timekeeper, they stumble into a giant hourglass. We also learn that after Junie retired from the OSS at the end of the second movie, he continued being a private investigator like we saw at the start of the third movie. I wonder if his rate is still $4.99, or if he had to raise his prices with inflation. Cecil beats up some grown men in the dark and then uses his hearing aids to break open the vault. Rebecca, on the other hand, set an elaborate and over-the-top trap that triggers a jetpack in order to take out a single guard. TikTok captures the kids, so Argonaut sends a message to Wilbur asking for his help. It turns out Danger is the boy that was stuck in time, and the Armageddon device was actually built to go back in time, not destroy the world. Danger was trapped, frozen in time, as he watched his father die of old age trying to set him free. The sapphire actually came on a meteor, and it's what broke him out of being frozen in time. So now he's going back to have more time with his dad by bringing the sapphire back to free himself. Cecil tells him that he's already tried this before, as TikTok and all his goons are versions of Danger, and no matter how many times he tries, it doesn't work. So the big villain is just a sad boy who misses his dad? Marissa, Carmen, and Junie show up and get frozen instantly, again. Danger goes through the portal to see his papa, but then he returns an old man and shuts down the machine. He says it didn't matter because in the end, his dad still died and there was nothing he could do. Wait, did he not realize that people die? Or did he just not go back far enough? Because he makes it sound like either he has no clue what the concept of death is, or he went back in time like right before his dad died. Oh, and Wilbur shows up to arrest TikTok and take out all the other goons in one punch. In the end, Junie and Carmen say they're heading up the new Spy Kids and they want Cecil and Rebecca to be their first recruits. Well, that sucked. First and foremost, they destroyed Junie as a character, and honestly, I'm pretty disappointed with how Carmen turned out too. Junie left the OSS after the second movie because his morals wouldn't let him live the way a spy does. In the third movie, he only comes back to save his sister, and at the end, he's still retired and goes back out on his own. Towards the end, it's revealed that even though Junie went out to do things his own way, it didn't work, and he's a loser now. That's a terrible way to treat this character. That's so unfair and unsatisfying. I don't understand why you would even make an official fourth Spy Kids movie just to ruin these two characters. It feels like Junie and Carmen are only included to either A, satisfy people that wanted to see this movie with their inclusion, or B, just make this a fourth official Spy Kids movie instead of a soft reboot, which is what the fifth one ends up being anyways. In between the first, second, and third movie, it was very clear that Carmen and Junie were at least up to things in between the missions we saw, but this one makes it feel like the last 7 years these two have done nothing and now they're just kind of failures. But let's talk about the bad guy's plan. The Timekeeper announces on live TV that he's going to end the world, but now we know it was Danger Diamo the entire time. Why did he announce to the world and all the other agencies of the world that he was doing this? Why not just say nothing at all and do it in secret? Plus, he says he's ending the world on TV, but that was never his plan, so why did you lie? It doesn't even matter because not only is the device not a world-ending device, it's a time machine. The Timekeeper was never even a bad guy at all, so why are you pretending like you're one? If he had just not said anything and done it in secret, he could have kept going back in time to try to see his dad or whatever. But announcing it to the world that you're going to destroy the world sent everybody after you, messing up your plan. And in the end, your plan didn't even work. This is so stupid. It's so stupid. But it's not as stupid as this stinking dog who's easily the worst part of this movie. Every single line of dialogue out of this dog's mouth, and by the way, it's Ricky Gervais's voice. It's nothing but bad one-liners, terrible quips, fart jokes, pee jokes, poop jokes, and pop culture references that have already aged poorly. Is Robert Rodriguez secretly Vincent Adult Man from BoJack Horseman? Because his sense of humor is that of two 10-year-olds in a trench coat. The jokes in the first three were definitely corny and a little silly, but in this one, it's just an over-the-top, disgusting humor that I can't stand. The hurling of puke bags and throwing poop-filled diapers were more than enough for me to know this movie is bad. Junie and Carmen were likable from the start of the first movie, unlike Cecil and Rebecca, who come across as little brats who are spoiled. Not a single scene shows us, the audience, any reason why we should be rooting for them. Rebecca is nothing but a brat, even when people don't deserve it. And Cecil is the whole reason we get the puke scene, so he sucks too. They aren't likable. I actually want to punt him off a bridge. But more importantly, why are the super important and powerful brains that Gregorio worked on just sitting in this room of Spy Kids Easter eggs? And how on earth is Carmen's video game suit here? She wore that inside the video game, not in real life. This is a terrible sequel, and honestly, I hated it. I hated it a lot. The movie opens with Tony and Patty, our new Spy Kids, going through a temple to stop a thing called Armageddon, like the title. They fall through the floor, and then we cut to one day earlier to the Torres family, consisting of Terrence, Tony, Nora, and Patty. Terrence, the dad, tells Patty that screen time is only allowed between 4 and 6 p.m., and she knows better. Oh, he's one of those parents.
Very cool.
Tony, on the other hand, doesn't care, so he plays his game in the open because he has to practice for the new game coming out that night. Terrence and Nora don't notice him as they are too busy putting the Armageddon code in and syncing it for some reason that's never explained. The Armageddon code can break into any device and give you control, making it very valuable and highly sought after. It's also the anniversary of the parents' greatest mission, named Operation Fireball, and this is the year they said they would let their kids know that they're actually spies. The school bus comes for the kids, and apparently the reason Terrence is so tight on technology is because he's worried someone will hack their system through their kids' devices. You're spies, and you work for the OSS. 20 years ago, Carmen hacked into the Pentagon using a makeup counter. But your security isn't tight enough to stop hackers?
Oh, that's stupid! Really stupid.
The spy couple talks some more about how they have to let their kids fail in order for them to learn, but Terrence says video games are bad. They go on a mission, and in order to bypass the system they're trying to get into, Terrence has to beat a video game. A giant, poorly CGI'd knight-looking guy drops down from the ceiling and steals Terrence's watch, thinking it has the Armageddon code. Some random kid on the street is getting interviewed, and he says that the thing that attacked them was a Heck Knight from a game called High Score. Meanwhile, at school, Tony cheats his way into winning a random card competition his school is hosting that is giving away the game High Score. What school is this? After his victory, Tony then just plays a video of a guy called The King, who's the creator of the game and is basically just a crazy rich white guy. Tony then says that the game comes out at midnight and he's going to beat his parents' security systems and play all night long. Our future spy kids sneak their way past their parents to get to the game room, where Tony easily gets past his dad's passcode. Now I understand why Terrence is so worried about being hacked. He's terrible at cybersecurity. Terrence and Nora argue some more, and he says that they should lock their kids' lives up in order to keep the code safe, while Nora says they should just delete it. She drugs him to delete the code herself, and as the kids download the game, the King uses that in order to download the Armageddon code. Terrence wakes up and believes that the kids are up to no good, and they get back to their beds just in time before he opens the door. The next day on the news, it's revealed that in order to access any smart device, you have to beat certain things from High Score. This is supposed to be a lesson about relying too much on technology, but this isn't even close to how this technology works. They show a guy playing the game on a smart lock. That's not how that works at all. A bunch of High Score guys show up at the house for a quick fight before the family runs to the garage to escape to the safe house. Parents of the Year over here put the kids in a rocket car while they take a weird looking dune buggy, and both of these cars run on smart technology in order to start? What kind of nonsense is that? Also, why didn't they put a vehicle big enough for all 4 of them? These are bad spies and bad parents. The rocket car gets chased by some more bad guys, but using the power of video games, the children outdrive them and arrive safely at the safe house. Terrence and Nora, on the other hand, still being bad spies, get captured pretty easily, honestly. Also, the safe house is underwater, under this nasty looking lake, but once inside, the sunroof thing opens to show a blue ocean. I'm telling you, the water continuity and life jacket continuity need improving in these movies. A hologram of Nora gives them a tour of the place, which leads to a spy training room. Shazam and Nora break out of their holding cell, and the king says that the late 20th century was the height of visual technology. Why do movies do this? Why does anyone do this? The 1990s aren't even close to the height of visual technology. You're just relying completely on nostalgia. This king guy is actually pretty stupid if he believes this. And the king is pretty pissed because the code he stole only got his game into half the devices on the planet, so he challenges the parents to a duel for the other half of the code. These so-called spies immediately lose to this tech guru. That would be like any agency in the world losing to like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. It would be shameful and extremely embarrassing. It doesn't really matter because the king figures out that the other half of the code he needs is in the necklace that Nora gave Patty, just like when Marissa gave Rebecca a necklace that had the device in it. Man, Robert Rodriguez really likes to recycle his ideas. And speaking of the kids, they're busy using a spy suit generator and eating cereal when a robot crab shows up. Patty is upset because her parents being a spy means they have to lie, so she says she'll never be a spy. Some bad guys show up, so the kids outsmart these grown adults and take them out one by one. They escape, and new Devlin, sadly not George Clooney, shows up to tell them that they're coming with him. Devlin is impressed with these kids, so he asks Tony to help them beat the high score game so they can access their system at the OSS. And while Tony is doing this, all the adults cheer him on by awing and oohing the entire time. Once inside the system, more bad guys show up at the OSS building, and honestly, I wonder how they found it. These highly trained secret spy agents get steamrolled by the video game characters, which allows the Heck Knight to steal the other half of the code. Tony and Patty hijack a boat plane as the crab pilots them over to King's Island. They crash in his castle, and their spy glasses tell them that everything is layered in an artificial reality. Tony and Patty ditch the game characters on the bridge and are able to find and rescue their parents. Now, multiple times throughout this movie, they keep referencing this mission called Operation Fireball. And I gotta be honest, it sounds really lame. Basically, Terrence and Nora just drove a truck through a door, Nora beat a bad guy up, and then they danced as an explosion blew up the facility. And for some reason, this is now their benchmark of successful missions, basically doing nothing impressive. Patty gets mad at her parents for what they did and says that they could have asked nicely for what they wanted or gotten an understanding of the bad guy's interior design sense.
Why are you the way that you are?
The family splits up, and we cut back to the opening sequence as they fall through the floor and land right at the central computer. Tony thinks he's stopping Armageddon from being armed, but instead, he actually ends up arming it. The bad guy from Operation Fireball was the king's dad, so he wants revenge for his papa dying after being sent to a top-secret prison. He activates the code and flies away in his little cube ship. As everyone gives up, Patty says they can use VR pods that are in the castle to beat the king virtually and stop the game from taking over. Now, in the video game world, the family runs and jumps their way across while Terrence makes jokes about his back hurting. They fight some bad guys, and Tony has to remind Terrence to use his giant hammer hand to hit the bad guys, while Patty gets some kind of upgrade. Then the parents and Patty hug and be nice to everyone so they stop being bad.
Step back, I think I'm gonna vomit!
Terrence shoots his hammer at King, but since that would be cheating somehow, Tony jumps in front of it, and then King kills Tony. Tony is then granted this legendary one-hit, which brings him back to life and lets him kill an opponent in one hit. So through the power of friendship, Tony convinces the king to shut everything down, and the day is saved. Devlin and the OSS show up, and instead of arresting King, he's sentenced to stay in his massive castle and play his video game until he's a better person. I don't really see how that's a punishment for a mega millionaire who clearly is obsessed with video games, but sure. Terrence and Nora quit because they don't want to lie anymore, but then Devlin says they're making the OSS more honest. What does that even mean? You're going to make a spy agency that is operated by the US government more honest? I don't believe you. I actually believe you in the negatives, if that's even possible now. 6 months later, they're a spy family, and King is officially redeemed and helping people. The end. Look, this isn't as bad as the fourth one, but it's just fine. It has a couple good moments, a few bad moments, but mostly it's meh. Surprisingly, Zachary Levi isn't that bad in this, although it still feels like he tries way too hard.
It's Eden. We're gonna have fun. Let's have fun. Okay.
This one also feels like they're trying to recreate what they had Junie go through over 3 movies, smushed into one. Patty comes to the same conclusion as Junie, but the difference is she was always kind of that way. Yes, Junie does get upset when he learns that his parents lied to them, but his issue is the fact that his parents lied, not that they're spies. Patty says she doesn't want to be a spy because of the lying, so to me, those two things are different. I also feel like that when Junie comes to the conclusion of not wanting to be a spy himself at the end of the second movie, it was a very natural progression of him going through these two plots, having to lie, cheat, and steal, and be all these things that he didn't like, so him coming to this realization felt more natural. With Patty, it just feels forced because most of her moments are about how everyone needs to be nice to each other and not lie and just hug and make up, which is fine for a kids movie, but if they were trying to replicate what they did with Junie, they failed on every level. Also, Tony and Patty are just troublemakers who stumble their way through saving the day only because they're good at video games. I guess for kids though, the idea that being good at a video game could save the world is a pretty good concept, just not executed that well. There are a few recycled moments from the original, like them taking a craft of some kind that starts on autopilot, but inevitably they have to do manual control. The parents get kidnapped and then the kids have to rescue them so they can all team up as a family in the final act again. And the safe house has some parallels as well. I don't know, I think this one is passable and feels like an attempt to recreate some of the original's charm for a new audience of kids, but I don't think the emotional moments are pulled off in this one. In the end, the parents were way too overprotective, Tony is a rule-breaking brat, and Patty just wants everyone to hug. When it's revealed that Tony solved the code and then Terrence put locks on all their gadgets out of concern for their safety, I just thought he was a bad dad and a bad spy. Why would you have this super important Armageddon code in your basement in the first place? Shouldn't that be locked up under lock and key at the OSS, like under 24/7 armed guard surveillance? Nora and Terrence are the dumbest spies across this entire franchise. Their tactics involve not listening to each other and then dancing as things explode. Gregorio and Ingrid weren't perfect and also get captured and look a little weak, but they were way more likable than these two. The only fun part of this movie is Billy Magnuson's performance as the king. He's a delight in everything he's in, especially his role in Game Night. This dude is hilarious, and even in this schlop, he's a gem in the rough. I don't have much else to say about this one. It feels the most like a kids movie, and overall is simply passable and nothing more. I will give all 5 Spy Kids movies credit on one thing. They always redeem the villain. Growing up with these movies, I never really put that together, but now watching all 5 of them, it's the case every single time. In the first movie, the bad guy is kind of Fluke, but mainly it's Minion that's kind of pulling the strings and really the one behind it all. Mr. Lisp is the only person that shows up in this franchise as a bad guy and doesn't come back later as a good guy or is redeemed by the end. Floop gives up halfway through the plot on being evil, and Minion by the end is back to being a good guy and is helping Junie and Carmen in the second movie. Donegan Giggles is the mastermind and bad guy in the second one, and to some small degree, Gary and Gertie were also antagonists. But in the third movie, Donegan is the one helping Junie from the outside, so I guess the OSS just forgave him, but either way, he's redeemed and back to being a good guy. The third one sets up the toy maker as some madman who put Grandpa in a wheelchair. Then Grandpa forgives him and everyone smiles and waves as the day is saved and the toy maker's actually not a bad guy after all. Danger Dum Dum in the fourth was never a villain at all, just a giant idiot who told the world his plan was to destroy the world, when in reality he was just going back in time. Maybe TikTok was truly bad, but he never did anything evil that we saw, except for him trying to beat up a pregnant lady. Plus, King says that his dad wasn't doing anything bad, and he was just trying to help their country, so Terrence and Nora might kind of be responsible for an innocent man's death. But King just wanted to make the world a better place. His approach was just not the best, and in the end, he becomes a good guy anyway. I like how none of them are truly bad, because again, in a kids franchise, I think it works really well. I started this list of gadgets because I thought we would see them across all the movies, but it turns out the third, fourth, and fifth all kind of drop the trend and trade out the variety we started with for just 1 or 2 items they used the entire time. Either way, here are some of the gadgets I saw that I thought were pretty cool. Electric gumballs that they used to take out the thumbs and robot kids in the first movie. Machetes, world's tiniest cameras. Bubbles that explode with electricity, which is something I think I would take with me everywhere. An acid crayon that Carmen uses to break her mom out of her cell. Instant cement that looks an awful lot like silly string. We get some Spider-Man style wall climbing with sticky gloves that they use to climb the juggler. The machete elastic wonder, which is basically just a rubber band, I think. And my personal favorite, the watch that does everything except tell time. In the third one, there's not a lot of gadgets because they're in a video game, and the fourth and fifth one just don't really lean into this trend at all. There's definitely more that I missed or didn't mention, but these are the ones that I saw and remember loving as a kid. You know, I had forgotten how funny the first 3 were.
Cake. That guy, pal, trust me, you're not that guy.
I also realized that Junie gets fucked over in the love department every single time. They set this boy up for 2 different love stories, and both times he gets ghosted. I only find it funny because in the third one, he also falls for a literal computer program. That's rough. I'm also so curious as to how Robert Rodriguez gets so many big names to be in these insane movies. I mean, he's gotten people like Bill Paxton, Terry Hatcher, Tony Shalhoub, Steve Buscemi, Sly Stallone, Elijah Wood, George Clooney, Antonio Banderas, Selma Hayek, and the list goes on. And he got kid stars that are big now, like Glenn Powell, Selena Gomez, and Emily Osment. But I don't think Jessica Alba, Joel McHale, Zachary Levi, and that dude from Entourage work in the same way that Antonio Banderas and Carlo Gugino did. Gregorio and Ingrid were written to be goofy, strict, and understanding parents, and the blend between those worked within the kid's story. All the other parent duos feel like they're trying too hard to only be goofy. And maybe that's what the fourth and fifth one were going for, because they have a very different feeling compared to the first 3. If Junie and Carmen didn't show up in the fourth, I wouldn't believe it was set in the same universe. Or it could be that now that I'm an adult, these just don't hit me the same way. But the barf bag scene says otherwise. So at the end of the day, the fourth is easily the worst one, and probably some of the worst cinema I've been subjected to. The fifth one is mostly meh, and doesn't really do a lot one way or the other. But the first 3 are good enough to carry this entire messy franchise right into so bad, it's good. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to check out my video on the movie Minions, another so bad it's good movie. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below what movie you'd like to see me cover in the future.